Welcome to the Radical Love Endeavor, a podcast produced by Advent Lutheran Church. Our mission is to talk about real, contemporary issues in the light of God's love. We are all beloved children of God, and this knowledge is life-changing. We'll talk about all kinds of topics, and our intent is to enter into authentic conversations with each other and with you. So if you could use a little more love in your life, keep listening.
I'm Pastor Ward Meisenheimer, and this is the Radical Love Endeavor podcast. I am honored to introduce this reflection by Frieda Mottonen. Frieda grew up at Advent Lutheran Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. She is a 22-year-old follower of Jesus. She is a young adult missionary with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. She most recently served in Rwanda until her emergency evacuation 2 weeks ago because of COVID-19. Frieda is a 2019 graduate of Valparaiso University in Indiana, where she majored in theology and holds 3 minors: art, philosophy, and Native American studies. Her meditation is entitled Oceans of Lament. In this powerful meditation, she reflects on her personal grief of having to leave Rwanda as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Again, it is an honor to share Frieda's reflection with you.
Today, I am here. Only I don't really know where here is or when today happens. 12 days ago, I was in an empty line for coffee at the Dunkin' Donuts in a nearly abandoned JFK International Airport. 13 days ago, I was one of the last people to check in for my flight out of Rwanda, a flight that had been changed 3 times that week. 14 days ago, I wept with my Rwandan host family, my family, for the entire 3 hours that we were allotted to pack my things and say goodbye. This was the first and the last time I saw them since we heard the news. 16 days ago, my country coordinator, Janelle, sat all 6 of us young adult missionaries down in her living room and told us we would be evacuated and sent back to the States. Our lament began that day. My life in Rwanda has cascaded between joys and sorrows, as I'm sure your lives have wherever you have been. Lamentations, both found in Scripture and in our own hearts, offer a framework in which we can be heard and be witnesses of one another's experience. 18 days ago, one of our best friends, Mama Kidumu, came over to surprise Janelle for her birthday. We ate a delicious meal she prepared, played games, laughed, had cake, and sang hymns as we accompanied Mama Kidumu and her son to the edge of the road at the ending of our visit. We did not know anything that was about to happen. 20 days ago, I soaked in a natural hot spring off of Lake Kivu and felt the energy of the earth beneath me. 30 days ago, I woke up and built a fire to cook the milk over. See, we give out a cup of warm milk to our nursery school children every morning, and it was my job to cook the milk, help the kids wash their hands, and distribute the milk cup by cup. 50 days ago, I ate at the first ever Kentucky Fried Chicken open in Rwanda. The interior looks like a spaceship. 75 days ago, my favorite pen died. 97 days ago, I celebrated Christmas on the porch with sour oranges and stale bread. I ended the night being enamored by a lightning storm, my host brother Jonathan laughing at how nerdy I am. 116 days ago, I felt God through my bare feet, prancing on our church's dirt floor. I let the power of that sacred space into a crack in my insulated heart, and I wept at the strength of it. 123 days ago, I was moved to tears by the sighting of an elephant family in their natural environment, moving slowly along in search of water. 146 days ago, my family dinner erupted into a spontaneous dance party where I taught my mama how to dab and do the whip. 165 days ago, after a particularly bad day, I laid on my bed, staring up at the ceiling, feeling the most alone I had ever felt. 171 days ago, I set a boundary for the first time in my life, choosing myself over my obsession. 183 days ago, my fiancé told me he was in love with someone else through a text. 196 days ago, my newly found family celebrated my birthday by sprinkling water on me and singing the birthday song to me in 3 different languages: English, Francais, and Kinyarwanda. 199 days ago, I joined my family in a mix of awkward hellos, warm embraces, and unspoken expectations of what was to come. And 222 days ago, I was on a plane. I had left the country for the first time ever, jokingly saying I was going from 0 days abroad to 365. I had no idea that I didn't know what those days would look like, or that my count would be so off. I remembered the last time that I had been on a plane. It was my spring break of my senior year of college. I was finally only taking classes that I was interested in, one of them being a class on the prophets. I was working on a paper, the topic of which was Kathleen O'Connor's text, Lamentations and the Tears of the World. I read it from a place of relative comfort and emotional ease, not knowing how prophetic it would be for my year, how prophetic it would be for our world now. If you haven't studied Lamentations, now is a really great time to start. As O'Connor states, it is a book of comfort, a work of art, and a poem that does not create suffering, but rather reveals it through its ability to reflect the experience of tragedy in an honest light. As I revise my old theology paper, I am reminded of a few keys to participation in grief that are as relevant today as they were for their intended audience, the survivors of the destruction of Jerusalem. These are what I'd like to share with y'all today as we walk through uncertainty, pain, and loss. One key is that it is crucial that we acknowledge and express the sorrow in our life as much as we celebrate the joy. It is easy to say that any suffering, even at pandemic level, is a part of a larger picture that we are not aware of, but that does not acknowledge the overwhelming voice that decries God and feels abandoned by the one who is meant to be love incarnate. In Lamentations, and in our own laments, our exclamations are the ripping off of band-aids that silence victims and keep humanity from making necessary changes to our moral code. No longer can we ignore those who our system impoverishes, since, in some way, everyone is feeling the impact of our societal loss of freedoms. In our American culture, there has been present a sense of futility and hopelessness that masquerades under a guise of well-being so persuasive as to deceive the wearers of the masks themselves. That's from O'Connor's book on page 90. As we put on our protective masks, we are being called to remove the masks that keep us from opening ourselves authentically and vulnerably to one another. As we distance ourselves physically, we are being called to invite deeper connection socially. As we face the unknown together, we are invited to welcome ambiguity by trusting in the plan God has not just for me, but for us. Now is the time to be a witness to our collective and individual suffering, liberating us to become the family of creation that we were made to be. In Lamentations, one of the main characters is daughter Zion, who is in the midst of deep and profound suffering. She cries out for someone to bear witness to her pain, to comfort her in the midst of her deep longing and unbearable isolation. In this story, there is no Sunday school answer where God swoops in and saves the day. The only one who listens to her cries is found in the character of the narrator. In the beginning of our story, the narrator is a distant observer and reporter of Zion's plight, with a tone disconnected and uninterested. But as the narrator opens themselves to be a witness to her pain, they are transformed. The narrator is moved to take on her suffering as their own, eventually becoming an advocate for her and crying out at the way God has left her. Daughter Zion is searching for God's comfort, but God does not answer. Yet she finds her comforter in her witness. We are called to be witnesses to one another. This is another key revealed to us by Lamentations. As we tread together in the waters of doubt, hopelessness, and despair, working so hard to hold on and keep our heads above the water, as we tread, we are invited to take turns bearing the load, comforting one another, and allowing others to relieve us of our burdens. Suffering has a way of making us reach into our own wells of humanity and have compassion for others. This is the whole reason the symbol we choose to bear is that of the cross, an image having everything to do with sorrow and pain. And although we must never forget how important that sacrifice is, we must continue reminding one another that we take our ultimate comfort in the fact that the tomb is empty. I found myself wondering, how could the church hold the tension of having to celebrate Easter while in isolation? But perhaps this is the ultimate way to stay true to the mystery. We have to admit that we don't understand or have control of everything, which was a cornerstone of the message Jesus gives us. We now have to bear witness to tragedy and resurrection simultaneously, just as the disciples did, acknowledging and finding comfort amidst seemingly paradoxical tension. When Pastor Ward reached out to me and asked me to share my story of grief, my immediate reaction was to say that I couldn't, because my grief is so fresh and so current. I'm still going through it. But as I read through the words of my 21-year-old self, I hear the message I had written so clearly for me today. Share your truth. In Rwanda, the typical greeting that is used when two people meet is amakuru. This word is used in the same place where we would say, "How are you?" and is even translated that way sometimes. But the meaning of the word amakuru is not "how are you," it is stories. When two people meet, they ask one another for stories. In language, they offer themselves as a witness to the other's life experience, whether that is tragedy or joy, beauty or challenge, and usually it's a mix of it all. Of course, even Rwandan people struggle with trusting their stories to strangers, and it usually takes a level of trust in both the people and the environment they find themselves in. But how can we all welcome each other into spaces of vulnerability where we can share our truths? How can we learn to be witnesses, advocates, and comforters in times of tragedy? Well, today, you all are here. You all have now been witnesses to my grief, and in that, we can find our power to liberate others. Spaces like this need to be created and honored for people to share and be witnesses to each other's stories. Thank you for bearing my suffering. We tread in these waters. We are tired. We need one another. Continue the work of witness, both for your own stories and for others, because we are not alone in this ocean of lament. Amen.
This has been the Radical Love Endeavor, produced by Advent Lutheran Church, which is a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Our music was written and performed by Mars Lashardi. If you would like to learn more about Advent Lutheran, please go to www.adventlu.org to see what we are up to. The opinions of the people on this broadcast are not necessarily endorsed by either Advent Lutheran or the ELCA, but are the honest and open views of the folks featured in our broadcast.